And here to open proceedings today is the party honorary president, Jeffery Titford.
Good morning, conference. Lovely to see you all here again on another packed house. That's the way it should be. Well, didn't we do well? In 1999, this party, UKIP, won 3 seats in the European Parliament. One of them was mine. And they immediately labelled us the protest vote. 10 years later, we win 13 seats. And what is the answer? Oh, it's the protest vote. This year, 24 MPs, and they have the audacity to keep saying, it's the protest vote. Well, those 3 misguided folk up in Westminster who like to refer to us or our supporters in that way have got to suddenly realise that they can call us what they like, but that number of votes is going up steadily every time. It won't be long before we break through the establishment. And just for the record, Comrades, one of the polling groups, did a survey of the people who voted for UKIP just recently. And the most interesting point of that was that 76% of those that voted for us said they will do so again in a general election next year. You see, I don't care whether the other parties do call us the protest vote, because to them, it's a lifelong vote. And UKIP are the sharks just circling around it. So as long as Westminster gang cling to this belief, and we shall be there to challenge them all the time, and eventually we're going to beat them. 1956 was a very significant year for me. I married that year in the March, but it was also the year that I became a Eurosceptic. I'd heard of the Schuman plan, and then suddenly I started to hear voices that certain countries in Europe were banding together for so-called trade. And I had to ask myself why. Because, quite honestly, a country always deals more in trade with an adjoining country rather than somewhere else far away across the world. So why was it necessary for them to do this thing? What were they up to? 1956. Nigel Farage hadn't even been born then. You see, it was the civil servants, Monet, Spinelli, the Englishman Slater, who had this wonderful idea of gathering people together. And initially, it was the idea of keeping France and Germany from having beaten the hell out of each other. As they had to, over a long period of history. But it was when the politicians started to get involved that they suddenly changed the agenda. And then it all suddenly became political power, not trade. And that is where their agenda took them, and what has brought us to the situation that we are in today, and why, actually, UKIP has been formed. Nigel, he said that this election would cause an earthquake in British politics. And after the results came in, he proved to be right. But how good he was during that campaign. We must never forget the huge debt we owe to Nigel and his wife Kirsten. always great, and at great personal loss. This campaign was particularly torrid, and most of the abuse, verbal, physical, and from the media, was aimed at Nigel. But he has emerged bloodied, but unbowed, and above all, triumphant. So what can we say of the self-styled party of in? Oh yes, they're out. The Lib Dems were trapped and are now imploding in an endless internal war that unfortunately reminds me of UKIP in its earlier days. But for me, one of the toughest things to put up with in this campaign was the Tory mantra of UKIP can't deliver. This from a party that's been talking about reform of the EU for decades, but couldn't even manage to cut one of the visits out from Brussels to Strasbourg. In fact, I don't know whether you remember, they crowed when they thought that they'd won that war, only for the European Court to rule it illegal and had to be reinstated the session back in Strasbourg. They claimed that Cameron had vetoed a treaty, but no treaty was ever offered to them. They claimed to have cut the EU budget, forgetting to mention, of course, that there was actually a real increase in terms. Not a cut at all. You know, the Conservative Party, with all their resources, they couldn't deliver a pizza to the right address. And yet, they and the others still think that EU is the answer to everything. We have this week been remembering the landings at Normandy. Great should be those wonderful tributes to those people over there. But I find it very strange that we, UKIP, are now having to storm the defences of our own Parliament in Westminster. And all we wanted, and well still want, is peace, self-government, democracy, and trade. So, ladies and gentlemen, where did it all go wrong? Now, I'm proud of the work you have done in the elections. I'm particularly proud of the candidates in both those elections, the MEPs and the local elections. And well down to the South East for returning not one, not two, not three, but 4 MEPs to Brussels. I know you're a big region, but it's also very wonderful to see that you had the highest vote. I must also give a little nod to my old region, our eastern region. They got in 3, which was a new achievement for them. And I gather they scored the highest percentage vote of any region in the country. All I can say to you is, carry on the good work, and now sit back and enjoy the rest of this conference. It's yours.